Is it recording? I don't want to film again and have it not recording. All right, it's recording. Greetings, maniacs, Americans, and everyone else tuning in. I hope this video finds you well. This is a conclusion video to the Maine's Referendum Ballot 2023 session. Closing out, I am going to pretty promptly move into the 2024 election season because it always comes at a head really quickly at the last minute, even though it's always planned, and I know that I need to do more work and do more research. This is the year that I'm going to do that research. And so right after this, I'm going to call this the 2023 season, or season 1, and the next one will be season 2. It'll be the 2024 session. So I want to first just highlight how the results went. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how we voted. Overall, I was satisfied. I didn't stay up to find results. I needed to work early. I was really tired, and I was afraid that it would go worse than it did, and I didn't want to be kept awake because I was fuming or something. So I went to bed and woke up pleasantly surprised. All right, so for the last time, I'm going to read the question and the results, and that way we remember exactly what question 1 was and yada, yada, yada. And then I want to move into some articles just explaining the outcome and what it means, just to highlight some different areas. So, question 1, for the last time. Do you want to bar some quasi-governmental entities and all consumer-owned electric utilities from taking on more than $1 billion in debt unless they get statewide voter approval? We voted yes on 65.5% to a no vote at 34.5%. So it was 2/3, pretty overwhelming. Question 2. Do you want to ban foreign governments and entities that they own, control, or influence from making campaign contributions or financing communications for or against candidates or ballot questions? Question 2, we voted yes, even more overwhelmingly at 86.4% to a no at 13.6%. We said, no foreign entities, not even 5%, not even that much. Way to go. Question 3. Do you want to create a new power company governed by an elected board to acquire and operate existing for-profit electricity transmission and distribution facilities in Maine? Question 3 did not pass. It failed. The no vote got 69.8% to a yes vote of 30.2%. So it was 2/3 in the other direction in this case. I was disappointed about that. I do think that we would have fared better taking on our own electric utilities. Monopolies aren't allowed in anything else, and so it's strange that we're allowing and then passing to allow it. It's strange to me. But moving on to question 4, do you want to require vehicle manufacturers to standardize on-board diagnostic systems and provide remote access to those systems and mechanical data to owners and independent repair facilities? Question 4, right to repair. We overwhelmingly, at 84.3% yes, said yes, to a no vote of 15.7%. Question 5. Do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to change the time period for judicial review of the validity of the written petitions from within 100 days of the date of filing to within 100 business days from the date of filing of a written petition in the office of the Secretary of State, with an exception for the petitions filed within 30 calendar days before or after a general election? The wordy one. Question 5. I can hear my dog coming up the stairs. I think the door's gonna open. Hey, Lincoln. Hi, buddy. You made it. Where are you limping? Why are you limping? This is my Great Pyrenees Lincoln. He's just a treasure. His birthday is soon. He's turning 8 years old. And here my suspenders are, peeking out like a nip slip. Let's tuck those away. Lincoln wants more attention. Okay, so question 5 said yes. We were pretty torn on this one. We got 57.8% to a no vote of 42.2%. I don't understand why people would want to vote against this. I'm going to try to get the camera to focus. I don't know why. It's been autofocusing weird. So we were pretty torn on it, but it did pass at 57.8%, which is what counts. Question 6. Do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to require that all of the provisions of the Constitution be included in the official printed copies of the Constitution prepared by the Secretary of State? Question 6. Right up there, vast majority, 72.9% said yes, we want to. 27.1% said no. Again, I don't know why you would vote no, but okay. Question 7. Do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to remove a provision requiring a circulator of a citizen's initiative or people's veto petition to be a resident of Maine and a registered voter in Maine, requirements that have been ruled unconstitutional in federal court? And we said no at 68.5%. We do not want to amend it. We like it how it is, so please leave it alone. The yes vote got 31.5%. So, lastly, we have, for the last time, question 8. Do you favor amending the Constitution of Maine to remove a provision prohibiting a person under guardianship for reasons of mental illness from voting for governor, senators, and representatives, which the United States District Court for the District of Maine found violates the United States Constitution and federal law? We said we don't understand why, if it's against the Constitution, we're voting on it as a state, but if we are voting on it as a state, 53.4% of us say no, we don't want to change it. Again, leave it as it is. Where a yes vote got 46.6%. I just want to look at the count. Well, okay. It seems like some people just didn't answer some of the later questions. Actually, it looks like some of them only answered questions 2 and 3. Or actually, some people skipped 3, voted 4. You can see the number count, and some of them are in the 400,000s. Others are not quite that much. 300, yeah, not quite 400. So it's, okay, interesting. So that's how overall the outcome of this election was. I know, attention's gonna have to go away from you for a minute. He's getting comfy in my new setup because I cleaned, and so I was able to decorate behind me and have this new setup, which I like. Matchy. All right. So I pulled up several articles. I tried to find one on each of the questions. I don't know that I actually did that, but that's fine. Okay, first up, question number 6. This is by Michael Shepard from Bangor Daily News. Maine's historic treaty obligations to tribes will be printed alongside other parts of the state constitution after voters backed question 6 in Tuesday's election. The yes side of question 6 had 73% of votes to 27% for the no side when Bangor Daily News and Decision Desk HQ called the race at 9:18 p.m. Tuesday. It was a key part of the tribal rights push before the legislature this year, although it is more of a symbolic measure because the obligations have remained part of the Constitution. Voters passed the change despite Governor Janet Mills' I'm butchering this. Vociferously opposing it in March. Wow, I butchered that word. Just very vocally opposing it in March. The passage of question 6 honors the legacy of our tribal ancestors, Penobscot Nation Ambassador Maureen Bryant said in a statement. It brings about truth and transparency for all Mainers. I'm appreciative that Mainers agreed to support our shared history. One proponent told a legislative panel earlier this year that the change would unerase part of the state's history. In 1876, lawmakers took treaty obligations out of print, extracting them alongside antiquated items in changes aimed at increasing readability of the document. I need to slow down just a little bit. The historic record is unclear on whether tribes were being explicitly targeted at that time, but Maine's history is full of sinister examples in that vein, including a 1942 document that surfaced last year and showed lawmakers concocting a scheme to avoid massive payments to tribes. Mills, a Democrat who took office in 2019 with a promise to repair the state's historically fraught relationship with tribes, has inked major compromises, including one giving them full control of a mobile sports betting market that opened last week. But she has resisted their sweeping sovereignty push alongside smaller changes, including the one contained in question 6. It would have been an easy win, and it would have fallen your campaign, Janet Mills. Any legislation that could be interpreted as invoking ancient treaties as the legal basis for modern obligations would be confusing and potentially destabilizing, Jerry Reed, her chief counsel, wrote in a March memo to lawmakers. But honoring ancient treaties is what we still do, and the Constitution is one of them. And without agreeing to adhere to that, we don't have the society that we call America. So, not my favorite written article. I totally support question 6 going through, and I'm glad it did. Not a great article. Okay, they're all from Bangor Daily News. Did no one else write articles on this? Maybe it's because they contribute to Newsbreak, the app I use. So it could be that they just have a push there. Maine backs foreign electioneering ban despite Janet Mills' constitutional concerns. Also by Michael Shepard. Also by Bangor Daily News. Maine voters easily passed a ban on foreign electioneering on Tuesday despite concerns from Governor Janet Mills and media groups that it would violate the First Amendment. The yes side of question 2 had 86% of votes to 14% for the no side when Bangor Daily News and Decision Desk HQ called the race at 9:20 p.m. Tuesday. Question 2 seeks to ban both foreign governments and companies that are at least 5% owned by foreign governments from influence candidate or referendum elections in Maine. It also urges the state's congressional delegation to support an anti-corruption amendment to the U.S. Constitution, although that part of the question is not binding. It was an outgrowth of Maine's 2021 vote against the hydropower corridor being constructed by Central Maine Power Company and Hydro-Quebec. Along with CMP's parent, the provincial-owned utilities spent a record-smashing sum against that referendum, drawing the ire of the corridor opponents whose race was funded by CMP's competitors in the regional power market. Question 2 would have wide effects on utility politics. Both Hydro-Quebec and Versant Power, the latter of which is owned by a company whose sole shareholder is the Canadian city of Calgary, Alberta, would be silenced in campaigns. CMP has said it would not be affected, but that is an open question since its Spanish parent is partially owned by Qatar and Norway. Mills, a Democrat who backed the corridor, vetoed this question. Go figure. Saying, question 2 would have the effect of silencing legitimate voices in debates that would impact their interest, in her veto letter earlier this year. Oh well. She also amplified the constitutional concerns of news industry groups, including the Maine Press Association, which has said the law could force outlets to create an oppressive, time-consuming, and costly self-censorship regime to ensure advertisements and opinion pieces do not violate the law. The Bangor Daily News is a member of that association. To me, it just sounds like more jobs opening up because they'll have to fact check themselves and they'll have to go through and make sure that they're abiding by the law. How is that any different than a human being? You or I just walking down the street. Like, oh, now I have to self-censor just to make sure I'm not breaking the law? Well, yeah, kind of. And, like, you figure out ways to make it work. Like, the people shouldn't have to worry about people coming in from other countries and influencing our elections in any way. I don't care if they have any stakes in the claim. If they want to do business in our state, they have to abide by our state rules. And we, the people of Maine, dictate what that looks like. So, yes, I'm all for this. I'm going to pause the video and see if I can find question 1 and work my way back instead of doing it all hodgepodge. I did find them all hodgepodge, but I'm going to try to find question 1, which I don't know if I have currently. So, pausing. All right. On further investigation, I couldn't find anyone that had covered question 1. The New York Times did something, but really it just broke down the outcome. It didn't extrapolate at all. I wish this would focus. So the next article that I have is from The Hill. I'm sitting too far away, is that it? All right. The Hill by Zach Budrick. Mainers vote down ballot measure to create consumer-owned utility. Maine voters rejected a ballot initiative Tuesday that would have replaced the state's electric utilities with the first state consumer-owned utility. The initiative, question 3, would have created the Pine Tree Power Company through a takeover of Maine's 2 investor-owned utilities, Versant and CMP. The Associated Press called the race Tuesday night with about 68% of the vote counted, indicating only about 30% of voters supported the proposition. Proponents of the ballot measure pointed to Maine's high utility costs and outage rates, while its opponents said it would be overly costly to compensate the private utilities and that its use of an elected board would place operation into the hands of people with no background in running a grid. We'll learn. The state's senators, Senator Susan Collins, a Republican, Angus King, an independent, stayed out of the fight, but Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, an independent, endorsed the measure while Governor Janet Mills, a Democrat, vocally campaigned against it. Mills previously vetoed a bill creating Pine Tree Power, passed by the state legislature in 2021. I wonder why she does the things she does. Governor Janet Mills, why do you do the things you do? Why do you vote the way you do? What makes you veto one thing and go ahead with another? I'm genuinely curious. Campaigners for Pine Tree Power told The Hill last week they were prepared for the possibility of a loss, citing being outspent by opponents. By millions! It's not even fair. Not even fair. The campaign echoed that message in a statement Wednesday morning, saying that they started a critically important conversation that does not end today. Good, I'm glad, and they're correct. It did start a very good conversation, and myself, I will keep it up. So they at least got one convert. So, way to go. Our grassroots campaign has talked with thousands of Mainers. It is clear that CMP and 𝗏𝗏 are hurting people, campaign manager 𝗏𝗏𝗘𝗢𝗏 said in a statement. With worst in the nation customer service, astronomical rates, and the most frequent outages in the country, Maine voters made clear that we deserve better. On the opposing side, Willie Rich, executive director of Maine Affordable Energy, praised voters who did their homework. They were outspent by millions of dollars. The homework was hard to do because of the propaganda being spent in their face. They rejected billions of dollars in debt, and they rejected the risk and uncertainty that came with it, Rich said in a statement to The Hill. It was a hard-fought campaign, but now it's over, and it's time for all of us to come together as Mainers to take on the challenges our state faces. The organization was formed in 2021 to oppose Pine Tree Power Initiative. The initiative was a disappointment on an off-year election night that brought largely good news for progressives, including Democrats regaining full control of the Virginia General Assembly and a resounding victory for an Ohio ballot measure to add abortion rights to the state constitution. Weird way to end when we're talking about Maine. I had one more article on question 3 because it was such a big one, and this is a follow-up. What happens now? Hold on. This is from News Center, Maine. It's by the Associated Press, so no one person is taking credit. Maine voters reject Pine Tree Power Plan. Here's what that means. The proposal to dissolve the state's 2 largest power companies to create a publicly owned nonprofit was met with intense debate. Maine. Maine voters rejected the opinion to dissolve the state's 2 largest power companies, 𝗏𝗏 and Central Maine Power, and instead create Pine Tree Power. The measure was created as a way to balance the high rates and customer issues from Central Maine Power and 𝗏𝗏 Power. The proposed takeover of 2 investor-owned utilities that distribute 97% of electricity in the state is unprecedented. If approved, the referendum would have marked the first time a state with existing private utilities decided to scrap them all at the same time in favor of a nonprofit model. The proposal would have dismantled Central Maine Power and 𝗏𝗏 Power and create the nonprofit utility Pine Tree Power to govern the grid instead. Supporters said there was little to lose because of the utility's poor performance, but critics said that there's no guarantee the nonprofit utility would perform any better, while the move could spark lawsuits and cost billions, as much as $13.5 billion, to buy out the existing utilities. A separate ballot question could have also posed a hurdle for Pine Tree Power. If approved, the referendum would require voter approval for borrowing topping $1 billion, potentially crimping access to bonds needed for the buyout. The vote came amid intense criticism of Central Maine Power over its slow response to storm-related power outages, a botched billing system rollout, and perceived roadblocks to connecting renewable power projects to the grid, among other things. Central Maine Power released a statement after Mainers voted to reject the Pine Tree Power Initiative. 50 years ago, in 1973, voters in Maine soundly rejected a proposal to seize Maine's electric grid and replace it with a political board. 61% no, 39% yes. Maine voters have once again overwhelmingly rejected this idea. With this referendum behind us, we are turning the page. As we look forward, we must continue to modernize our grid to support Maine's climate change goals, connect new renewable resources, and electrify our communities. Thank you to our 660,000 customers for putting their continued trust in Central Maine Power. We have more to say in the coming days. I'm not impressed. And it doesn't seem like people are that happy in the comments. And even when they said, even though I voted, and this is from the comments, even though I voted against Pine Tree Power, I'm not voting because I trust CMP. So people were put in a bind. Like, we don't trust CMP. We don't trust Vermont. We don't like the fact that Calgary, Canada, Alberta, Canada, Qatar, Norway, Spain, all of those countries have grips into our soul. And one thing that I've learned is that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes than I realized here in the state of Maine. I don't know. I realized that it happens in politics, but I guess I thought for a little old state like Maine, like, it can't be that bad, right? Wrong. So I'm going to do some research on that. It's going to be a project. So I'm going to do my best to bring that at least a trailer to get an idea of where I'm going with what I have planned. And it's going to play into the 2024 election season. I'm going to try and tie it together. So it's wrapping this discoveries from 2023 into the coming year of 2024. So look forward to that. Leave in the comments down below if you're excited. I know it's kind of, I'm going to look into the corruption that's happening in Maine on various levels, and it's going to be a deep dive. And I'm going to try and do it as professionally as possible, because in my mind, what I'm constructing has a lot of potential. So, all right, 3. So then 4. I know I have it right up here. Bangor Daily News, Michael Shepard, once again. Maine becomes second state to enact vehicle right to repair. Maine voters overwhelmingly backed a vehicle right to repair in Tuesday's election, siding with independent garages and generic parts manufacturers over big automakers. The yes side of question 4 had 81% of votes to 19% for the no side when Bangor Daily News and Decision Desk HQ called the race at 9:18 p.m. Tuesday. It made Maine the second state to make such a change after Massachusetts easily passed a nearly identical law in 2020. Question 4 will require automakers to standardize the electronic onboard diagnostic systems that have become prevalent in the industry and make proprietary information and parts accessible to independent garages and vehicle owners. Vehicular owners. Supporters of Question 4 spent $4.7 million to pass the law, with virtually all of that money coming from companies that stand to benefit from the shift, led by a trade group that represents aftermarket firms and companies including AutoZone, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, Advanced Auto Parts, and the parent of Napa Auto Parts. Automakers are trying to monopolize the market on car and truck repairs, but their customers, the voters, are acting overwhelmingly to put the brakes on them. Tommy Hickey, executive director of the Maine Automotive Right to Repair Committee that supported Question 4, said in a statement, "The auto industry opposed the shift that it has called unconstitutional." A lawsuit filed in Massachusetts kept the law there on hold until June, when state officials implemented it despite the ongoing court case. A similar lawsuit here could keep the law in limbo. John Bozella, president and CEO of Alliance for Automotive Innovative, which opposed Question 4, said Tuesday night the legislature should consider legislation to codify the national cooperation agreement that already exists between independent shops and automakers. Or you bend to the state's will because that's how it's meant to be. Subaru and Kia have disabled electronic systems in new vehicles in Massachusetts after the state began enforcing the law, Wired has reported. A judge in the case there also said the law may be unattainable and could harm the auto industry, according to the Boston Globe. I wonder how much they were paid out to say that. I mean, are the auto companies going to take a hit? Yeah, probably. But do they have billions of profits that aren't necessarily rightfully theirs going into their pockets? Yes, also. So this is we the people taking power again. Because corporations, as soon as they were counted as legal people, like, we started doing things wrong. Probably before then, but absolutely at that point. Question 5. Oh man. It doesn't necessarily call them out by number. I'm going to have to pause again. Question 5 amounts to a whopping no one cares. I can't find anything. Again, I mean, New York Times, but it's just a generic release. Sources, reported by, produced. It doesn't break it down at all. So other than 57.8% said yes, 42.2% said no. So yeah, no one cares about question 5. I have questions about question 5, and I want to dig deeper into that. And I need to take notes on these because I get done recording, and then I'm like, I think I said something. Like, I think I promised something, and then I don't remember. So I need to write this down. And I always have pens, but I don't have one here. Okay, my notebook's open, so that to me is going to indicate something. So, okay, I'm going to look more into question 5 and make sure I have pens here next time. So question 6 I already read. That's the first one we started off with. Bangor Daily News. Maine will print tribal obligations along with the rest of the state constitution. And then I know I have question 8 pulled up, but I should have 7. Okay. I guess if I look deeper, I could find question 7. I'm glad that we voted against allowing or amending the state constitution to allow non-residents to circulate written petitions for initiatives. It would have been bad. I'm glad that we said 68.5% of us said no, don't do that, leave it as is. Question 8, we have the last one that I'll cover tonight, and it'll be the final one of the 2023 election season, the Referendum Ballot, hosted by Drew Hoagland, and my first season. The next season will be 2024, starting ASAP. So this is Maine Morning Star. Mainers once again reject effort to scrap guardianship provision from Constitution, by Evan Popp. A polling station at Cape Elizabeth High School on Election Day, November 7th, 2023. Oh, it's a picture. That's where it's taken. I guess that's where they go to vote. Mainers on Tuesday opted against getting rid of a provision in the Constitution that prohibits a person under guardianship for reasons of mental illness from voting. The third time the proposed reform has failed. The decision, while ultimately symbolic, represents a blow to efforts to ensure that all citizens in Maine know they have the right to vote. If you're under guardianship, you already are being looked after. How do we know that it's not the guardian that's voting twice? I mean, if the person's under guardianship, are they of sound mind? You should be of sound mind to vote. The vote against question 8, the ballot measure asking Mainers if they wanted to scrub the guardianship provision of the Constitution, was 53 to 47%. The race was called by the New York Times on Wednesday morning with 93% of the count-in. Voters in Portland supported the measure by large margins, but the referendum was sunk by skepticism in more rural areas of the state. Clearly, the more reasonable areas of the state. Since 1819, Maine's constitution has barred people under guardianship because of mental illness from voting in state and local contests. However, in 2001, a federal court ruled that the exclusion was unconstitutional. How so? Cite it. The referendum on Tuesday was meant to align the text of Maine law with the decision and the current practice, as the state has not enforced the provision against voting under guardianship since the 2001 court ruling. You're supposed to obey our state law. State laws come first. The feds come later. Mainers also rejected measure to roll back the guardianship part of the Constitution in 1997 and 2000. Ahead of Tuesday's votes, proponents of putting the issue on the ballot said it was essential to clarify that Maine recognizes all of its citizens' right to vote. Proponents. I don't agree. I think it's important to ratify this amendment. We need to make it clear that in the state we have no reason to disenfranchise, says State Senator Craig Hickman, a Democrat of Kennebec, who led the effort to put the issue on the ballot, told the publication Bolts. No. I'm glad we voted the way we did. So that wraps it up, folks. That is the whole reason I got into YouTube, actually, was this voting season. Not that I'm about to stop now, but it was just heavy on my heart, and I knew that I needed to start participating however I could, whatever that meant, and this was it, and it's gone smoothly. My following count is now 270 plus subscribers from all over the world, so thank you. I don't know if you're still here at this point in the video. I know it's a longer one, and I'm just wrapping up local details, and from your part of the world, maybe it doesn't matter, but I have to imagine that because you're following this channel, and I've primarily talked about Maine laws, that you're interested in what I have to say, and maybe how to apply it in your own country or your own state. And that's what I love about Maine. I do believe that Maine is a model, and Maine can be a model for the rest of the world. I truly believe that. We have so much to offer. We're very open people. You have to get past the coldness of our hearts at times and the coldness of the environment. But if you can align with that and get used to it, you'll actually find that there's so much to offer, even though we can be grumpy at times, and the winters can be long. So at this point, I'm just going to wrap up. It's been a journey, but getting to 270 plus subscribers and just a matter of, I don't even remember when my first one was, a month ago, less than a month ago. So hoorah. And yeah, it's awesome. And I hope you continue to stick around. I'm going to keep doing me news for me. That's going to pick back up. I have a couple philosophical pieces that I want to do voiceovers to test out the different things. And I hope you tune in for my 2024 political session hosted with Drew Hoagland, season 2. And stay tuned for that. All right, till the next video, y'all.